Have you ever stopped to realize just how powerful and important your life story is? And I know you're probably going to tell me nobody wants to hear it, especially with everybody's opinions floating around and social media, but I beg to differ. Your life story is so important and it could inspire somebody. It can also save somebody. So don't keep that story to yourself. Today, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Welcome to Pinebrook Homestead. My name is Marie. Everyone and everything has a story, from the yellowware pottery and molds dating back to the mid 1800s to my grandmother's candy dish I fondly remember. Telling our stories is a gateway to wisdom, strength, and courage. In a throwaway society, our stories are kept under lock and key, yet softly whispering, "Please tell me. Please share me. Please let me out for the world to hear." So I politely request, please don't be quiet. Please share your story.
So, welcome back to my kitchen table, and I poured you a cup of tea. Today it is green tea, and we are celebrating a story today. This china that I've poured our tea in is my husband's grandmother's china. And it tells a story, and every time we pull this china out, it takes my husband back to the days when his grandmother hosted holidays and she had all the beautiful china out. And so I thought it was fitting for today's conversation. But this weekend was full of stories for me. Everywhere I looked, there were stories. And I started to seriously think about it and think about even my own life and what stories am I leaving behind and leaving for my grandchildren and leaving for my family. And I started to seriously think about all the stories that surround me. And in all of that, I so wanted to share with you just how important your story is, and you have to tell it. You know, in today's world, you can go to any thrift store, you can go to any antique store, which is by far my favorite, um, and you can pick up something, a piece of pottery or china or a figurine. And if that item could talk, the stories it would tell us. Maybe that person had that figurine sitting on their nightstand, or that figurine represented a gift from a loved one. Those antique stores are so rich with stories. We just don't know them. I have a saying from Les Brown that the richest place is the graveyard because that's where all the stories and dreams go to die. And I I believe that is what our world is missing again. Yeah, you have social media and yeah, your families post up their pictures and all of that, but there is a lot of noise in social media. And I know for me, you click on one thing and the algorithm takes me completely away from everybody who I want to see. So then you have to delete all that out. But I started to think back on my grandmother. I started to think back on her stories and Grandma Aubrey's. And, I found an angel this week. And it was very fitting. Reminds me of a dear subscriber. She knows who she is. And I bought her. So I went to the thrift store and I was looking for just some odds and end Christmas, trying to refresh on my Christmas, but I didn't want to spend an arm and a leg. And I found this crystal angel, and she's beautiful. She's actually a candle holder, um, but she's beautiful, and she's crystal, and the light shines through her. And I wondered what her story was. I wondered whose mantle maybe she sat on, whose dinner table maybe she sat on, and I wondered where her story was. And then I was sad and glad. I was sad because she got donated, but I was happy because I rescued her. And she reminds me of a dear angel. And I put her in my hutch and with my china. And when the light's on, she just glows. But what are your stories? What story do you have that you could possibly inspire somebody else? Maybe it's your testimony. Maybe it's your testimony with your walk with God. Maybe it's something you've been through and you've come out triumphant on the other side. These stories need to be told. And unfortunately, we are not telling them. And stories bring us closer. And stories make us relatable. They make us relatable. And you can share your stories with your friends. You can share them with your neighbors. Most importantly, maybe you share it with that cashier that's checking you out that looks really down in the dumps. Those stories, they're precious and they're only yours. And here is the best thing. There is only one you, just one. And if you don't tell your story, it's like you don't exist out in the world. That story won't exist. So, do you write your story down? Do you share it with your siblings or your family or your grandchildren or your children? What are those stories that they can take and then continue the story on? It is so important. I've been surrounded by stories today. I'll share another one with you. I showed you a black piano. Well, cheers. This black piano um, dates back to the late 1800s. And it was built in Montana, purchased in California back in the late 1800s. And this young lady played this piano. She loved this piano. Well, she ended up meeting a young man who lived in Ohio. And I believe he probably, I don't remember why he was traveling. That I don't remember. I remember her story. Anyways, she fell in love with him and him with her. And he asked her to marry him. And her only request was, yes, I will marry you if my piano comes with me. So this piano took the ride of its life. And there are actually inscriptions inside the piano from the different people that have tuned it and the date. I mean, one of the tuning dates is 1903. How cool is that? So this piano makes it all the way from California to Ohio, where her and her husband resided. And they resided probably 20 some to 30 some miles away from me. When she passed away, her husband donated this piano to a family because he saw the son had a gift for playing the piano. Well, he learned and then graduated and went off to college. And I knew of this family, and this family looked at me knowing that I had a son with musical talent and knew I always wanted to learn to play the piano. Although I'll give you a secret, I've not learned it yet. Um, but that's going to be part of my story. Um, but, anyways, so this family asked me if I wanted this piano for free. For free. It was a gift, but it was a gift to this young lady. She had it her whole life. And now my son plays this piano. This piano story is, to me, it is romantic and it is inspirational and it's wonderful. And that gift back in the late 1800s is something my son in 2025 is playing. And that's amazing. That is so amazing. You know, after I went to the thrift store, I left and I had a blast. And I met this woman there and we were chatting, and it seemed like every aisle I was in, she was in, which meant we chatted and made jokes more that we need to be thrifting buddies and all that kind of stuff. But when I left, I felt so good. I found a red throw blanket that I wanted for Christmas. And then I found the angel and a frame for my granddaughter's picture. I'm out of frames. But, anyways, when I was leaving, there was a huge protest at the main intersection of our town. And I was, it really sucked the life out of me, really, to sit there. I had to sit through 2 light cycles hearing the bullhorns and all the ranting back and forth. And it, yeah. But I looked at all those people. And yes, they have the right to be there. They have the right of free speech. I get it. But I was looking at them wondering what their story was. What was their story that made them want to participate in this protest? What was their story? I then ended up back home and was piddling around the house. And then Sunday, we went to church. They were talking about being an evangelist. And as we were leaving, there was an older gentleman in his chair, head in his hands, with his son, arm on his shoulders. And I knew he had a story. I didn't know what his story was, and I wasn't going to ask. But he had a story, and that story was bringing him to tears. Every single one of us has a story, and maybe your story is not grand. Maybe it is that you were a homemaker your life and then went out into the work world, or maybe you've been a homemaker your whole life, or maybe you've been in the work world your whole life. But around that of who you are through work is not the story you're meant to tell. Our jobs are just a means for an income. That's not your story. Your story's deeper than that. And your story is what you've overcome. Or your story is what you've accomplished. Your story might be your grandmother's and how she impacted you. The wisdom comes in these stories, and I'm sorry, there's not much wisdom in social media right now. And that's where we can change it. That's where we can tell our story. I saw a young man today in the store. My husband and I ran out, had to get some Halloween candy. We do participate in the trick or treating because my grandkids come over here. We do not decorate, but we do participate in passing candy out. So I had to go get some candy, and wow, is candy expensive this year? Whew. Anyways, um, as we were checking out, there was a young man, and he was double masked, and his hands were in latex gloves. And I wondered what his story was. I wondered if there was fear. I wondered if his immune system was compromised, yet he was still out there working. He has a story. We all do. And you might think nobody wants to hear your story. And again, I beg to differ. I want to hear your story. Leave your story in the comments below. The world needs your story. Our stories could be louder than the opinions. Our stories could make a difference in the world that doesn't want to listen anymore. But if we tell them and we keep telling them, they'll make a difference to someone. And maybe your story only reaches one person. That's one person you've reached that if you've never told your story, you would have never reached. We have to tell our story. And yes, maybe our stories are evolving. Oh, I have enough stories of hardship. Oh, yeah. I have plenty of hardship stories. And the strength that I dug deep to find to get through. I have those stories. So in the store today, I was looking around and, there's all this home decor. And I was somewhat saddened. A couple different reasons. One, this stuff is from China. What story does it tell versus the antique store or the antique mall or the thrift store? Why are we looking at all this modern China junk? Excuse my French. Rather than looking at the history of the past. And I have to say, the things of the past, they're made better, way better. And then I was saddened by the minimalist movement because people got rid of a lot of things. And yes, maybe they were focused on experience versus items. But I'm sure they got rid of some things with some history, family history, some stories to tell. And then I got to tell you, I want to go back to the antique store so bad. I already told my husband now that the gardens are coming to the end and my time frees up a little bit. I already told him, I said, can we go down to the antique stores? Even I don't have to buy anything. I just love to look. And yes, it is like treasure hunting for me. But it's the stories. It's the stories behind the things. This table has a story. This table actually came from my childhood property where I grew up. My dad milled the cherry and made me the table. And so it comes from my homestead, my original home. Very special. Those stories, they mean something. They're going to mean something to someone down the road. We just have to be brave enough to tell them. We really do. What in your life do you have that tells a story? It can be a table, it can be china, it can be your mother's favorite necklace, maybe your mother or grandmother's wedding ring. Those are so precious, and the stories that go along with them. And my grandmother's candy dish that I used to always go over to her house and get a piece of candy from the candy dish, and I remember it fondly. What are you going to leave as your legacy, as your story for the ones you love behind you? Leave it in the comments below. So my encouragement this week is to think about your story and share it with at least one person. Share it with one friend, one stranger, and just share it with love of who you are and all that you have gone through. If you've liked today's video and you're looking for more inspiration as we get into the holidays and even beyond until growing season again, would you consider hitting the like, maybe even subscribing? We would love to have you. And I would love to hear your story in the comments below. You all are so special. And I only see what you write. I don't see you in person, but I know your story is a very special one. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a blessed week today, and go share your story. Bye-bye, everyone.